Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. Today's October 11th, my dad's birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. And this is my weekly shop update. So this week I have an update on the bandsaw mill. I'm going to show you my progress on that and take a look at some of the parts that just came in for it. We'll take a look at the completed apple press and we'll do some viewer projects, and we'll also talk about this guy right here. So let's get into it. So over here on the mill, I'm getting ready to paint the track assembly. So I removed the carriage from the track. I moved it onto a temporary track that I built, which was rather interesting. I had to get the carriage off so I could remove the actual track from the track frame, so I can get that painted and I get paint between the frame and the track. So that's what I'm working on today, is the prep work to get this thing ready for paint. I added some bracing in here to the front and back rails or cross members to strengthen those areas a little more, because I have some ideas, I guess, for things I'm going to do in the future that's going to put a lot of stress on the center of those cross beams. So I added some bracing there to help with the forces. A few people have asked me what kind of paint I'm going to be using. I'm going to be painting it with this POR 15, which goes over rust and chemically bonds to it, or so I've read, or so the literature says. It's supposed to be really good stuff. Last for a long time, and then I'll put a top coat on top of that. The prep work on this is pretty interesting because it doesn't really stick that well to smooth metal. It needs something rusty to stick to. So they also sell a wash, which is basically, I think it's basically like an etch. So I'll etch the steel that'll allow the paint to stick to it. So I'll go through and I'll wire brush everything, and then I'll degrease everything, and then I'll do the etch wash, and then I can do the paint. And then I have a top coat as well. So it's going to be quite the process, I'm sure. But I only want to paint this thing once. So new parts this week, I have the Acme rod. This is 1.5 inch diameter, 4 TPI, as well as the nuts I'm going to need to mount the rod to the beam to control the up and down motion. I still have to get the rest of the shafts and the gears and the chain, or I guess the sprockets technically, and the chain to tie these two together, and the bearings and all the other stuff. But the core component is here. This is a 6-foot section of rod, so the head will be able to travel almost 6 feet. There'll be a little bit of a loss due to the couplings that then go between the rods and the shafts, but the total travel will be almost 6 feet, which is good. So I also got the blades in this week. I got these from Cook Saw. I had mentioned, I think last week, that I was planning on using a 2-inch wide blade, but these are 1.5 inches. When I called and I was talking to them, they were saying that their 2-inch wide blades are made to run at a higher speed and thus need a more powerful motor to drive them. So for the motor that I have, they recommended me to use a 1.5 inch wide band, which is totally fine. So all I have to do now is just swap out the roller guides on here for 1.5 inch ones, and I should be good to go. They're sending me some replacements for those. And then in the future, if I do get a bigger motor, all I have to do is just switch out the roller guides and I can put a 2-inch wide band on there. So we're all good. These were 25 foot, whatever they were, 25 feet something, and they're $47 a piece, which I think is a ridiculously, well, it's ridiculously cheap compared to the standard blades you'd buy on a bandsaw for your shop, at least. Because you could buy a $40 or $50 steel blade for your bandsaw in your shop pretty easily. So this afternoon, I'm going to get started on the prep work for the paint, and that'll be the next sawmill video. I wouldn't think painting would be that interesting, but it's been quite the adventure just to get to this point so far. So here's the completed press. We used this thing on Sunday and it worked really, really well. I'm editing the video on the use of the press as well as making the press, and I'm hoping to have that done so it's out for this weekend, but we shall see. The pressing operation was a lot of fun and it works really well. So I know a few people were wondering about the whole process, and just a quick summary of that, because I have a whole video about it. So what we have here is a tray. So the tray collects all the juice. The first thing that goes down is one of these racks, or just basically lattices. This just allows the juice to flow through. And then you put a form in. The form gets a cloth that goes inside of it, and then you fill that cloth with the apples. You fold the cloth up, you remove the form, and then you place another lattice on top of that and repeat the process until you have about 5 or so stacks of these things. And then you put a top plate on, which we just use this piece of cherry. This just goes on top and starts pushing down on the apples. And I also have a press plate or block, I guess. This is what the jack sits on and just kind of distributes the force a little bit down to the top plate. And then you have a bottle jack in here that pushes up against this upper beam, and it works really well. We were able to make 18 gallons of juice, or almost 18 gallons of juice, out of 6 bushels of apples. We used Cortland, Keepsake, and some crab apples for a nice mix or blend, and it was delicious. So this was a really fun project, and it was even more enjoyable to actually use this thing. So I'm really looking forward to releasing those videos on the whole apple press and pressing process. First this week is a Keepsake Box by Scott. The box is made from quarter sawn walnut that he pulled out of a firewood pile and some soft curly maple cut-offs from a recent project. He recently had his wife's wedding ring repaired, and as a unique way to give it back to her, he built this box. Scott also put together a nice write-up on the whole build process, and there'll be a link to that down in the description. Next up is a cherry dresser by Andy. He built this dresser for his daughter. The case of the dresser is made from cherry, the legs are ash, the breadboard ends are walnut, and there's some internal structures made of pine. The poles are made from walnut, curly cherry, and purple heart, and there's a few other purple heart accents throughout the piece. Andy chose some really interesting and unique pieces of wood for this project, and he did hand cut all the dovetails on the drawers. Andy also has a great gallery of all the build pictures as well as descriptions that go along with those pictures. There'll be a link in the description so you can check that out as well. Next up is a Mesquite table by Robert. The top is made from mesquite and has a turquoise rock inlay, and the base is made from steel. Lastly this week is a farm table by Drew. He says that besides needing a table for himself, his idea was to show people they can make something great, easy to build, and at a great price, and he was able to make this table for under $100, which is really, really impressive. So check out Drew's video on making this table if you want to see more about that. So this is the Lie-Nielsen number 4 with the bronze body that I just got, and I've been wanting this plane for a while just because of no reason at all. I don't need it. I just really like it, and it feels really good in the hand, and it's pretty. There's absolutely nothing wrong with my number 4 that I've been using for all these years. I just wanted something fancy. Some people ask me why I got the bronze or what the advantage of the bronze is over the cast iron body. The bronze won't rust. It does patina, but it won't rust, which isn't that big of a concern for me because my planes don't just rust spontaneously in my shop. I don't have a problem with rust. The other thing is that it is heavier than the cast iron by, I don't remember how much more, but a little bit more, so it's got some more mass to it, and this thing already has a lot more mass than a, well, I guess, antique one. I've got my scale here, just to kind of get an idea. My original plane was 3 pounds, almost 9 ounces, and this one comes in at almost 5 pounds. So definitely a lot more substantial, so it feels really nice on in the hand, and as you're feeding it through the wood, it should stay down to the wood a little bit easier, and of course have more momentum as you get this thing moving, which is what I like about the number 8, for instance. That's a really heavy plane. I think it's like 8 or 9 pounds, and once you get that thing moving, it doesn't stop for anything. So I'm really looking forward to trying this thing out here in the near future on some projects. What I think I'm going to do is set this one up for a actual smoothing cut and leave this one kind of set as is for more rough work as I use it now. So that's my plan at least, and I'm really looking forward to playing with this thing. So I think that's about it for this week. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today or anything here in my shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.